58-year-old Albert William Bethia is behind bars after being accused of beating a man to death with a broken piece of sidewalk during an altercation. The assault occurred at around 6 p.m. on the 25th of January, around the intersection of Northwest 2nd Avenue and Northwest 8th Street in Miami, Florida, when the victim, whose name remains anonymous, allegedly walked past Albert and punched him in the neck at random. Witnesses told police that Albert grabbed a piece of broken concrete from a path nearby and tossed it at the victim's head, hitting him. He then allegedly picked up the concrete again and hit the victim in the head with it 4 more times. He then reportedly stomped on the victim's head with his boots. The victim suffered severe facial injuries and bleeding to his head and face. The victim was transported to the Jackson Memorial Hospital Trauma Center with a brain bleed and other wounds. Police located Albert in a park nearby where he was detained. He had blood all over his body, on the right side of his head, his pant legs and his boots. As he was being transported to the police station, he continuously struck and kicked the back of the officer's vehicle, but did not cause any damage to it. Albert was initially charged with aggravated battery and was released on bond on the 1st of March. On Sunday the 5th of March, the victim succumbed to his injuries. On Tuesday the 7th of March, Albert was rearrested after the victim died, and his charge was upgraded to second-degree murder with a weapon. He is held at the Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center without bond. A 21-year-old pregnant woman from the Belmont-Cragen neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois, was fatally shot by a gang of drug dealers that she was trying to rob. Genesis Escobar had organised a heist with her boyfriend. At around 1 p.m. on Monday the 6th of March, she climbed into a car to complete a drug transaction near her home in the 5200 block of West Montana Street. Her unnamed boyfriend, who was standing outside, tried to rob those on the other end of the deal. During an exchange of gunfire, her intended victim shot her in the shoulder, back and hand. It's unclear if she was armed with any sort of weapon or how the woman came to target the car's occupants. Her killers then threw her body onto the street and dumped hundreds of dollars on top of her before speeding off. Genesis' boyfriend grabbed some of the cash and fled, leaving the gasping expectant mother on the ground. She was rushed to a nearby hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Her baby daughter, expected to be born in 2 months, was also killed in the shooting. Police are investigating the matter, and no one is in custody. On Friday the 3rd of March, 26-year-old Trey James Rudolph was sentenced to 8 years in prison, with a non-parole period of 6 years, in connection to the shaking death of an infant girl. On the morning of the 4th of August 2020, Trey, the boyfriend of the aunt of 13-week-old Jasmine Wilkes, shook the infant out of frustration at his unit in Fowler Street in Hamilton, South New South Wales, Australia. He then wrapped her up, put her in a bouncer and left her to die from her catastrophic injuries. Rudolph told investigators that he was sleep deprived, had been using ice and smoking weed the night before, and was stressing out. He said, "I shook her a little bit. I gave her a cuddle and put her back down in a bouncer. I thought she was sleeping." The baby's mother, Tiani Wilkes Partridge, arrived at the premises at around 9 a.m. that morning. After she called early and Trey told her that everything was fine and that the child was asleep. And just after 10 a.m, the child's aunt checked in on Jasmine, where she discovered Jasmine was cold to touch and wasn't breathing. When paramedics arrived, she was limp and cold, and she was taken to the John Hunter Hospital, where she was pronounced dead at just before midday. The child's death was caused from head and neck injuries, and she was likely alive for about 30 minutes after the act of vigorous shaking, which could have lasted up to 10 seconds. Trey was arrested 4 months later and was charged with murdering the baby, and also faced a charge of sexual assault of a child under 10. He was set to head to trial, but the Director of Public Prosecutions dropped the charges after he pleaded guilty to the alternate charge of manslaughter. With time already served, Trey will be eligible for release in December of 2026.